Hello and welcome back to Tales of Lumin. Today we are talking about Hearthstone, Goblins vs. Gnomes, and my time playing it at BlizzCon 2014. I want to give you guys my impressions, my thoughts after playing it for a couple of hours, a good bunch of matches against various different people, and I want to also just put out there before I even start that this video is not going to be as crazy long or in-depth or detailed as my Overwatch video, mainly because there's much less to say. You know, you've seen most of the cards. There are new cards being revealed by the day over on the official site. It's not a brand new experience per se. I mean, it is, but at the same time it isn't, because you can look at the new cards and you can kind of work out how they would react and play in certain situations without actually having to play the game. It's not the same as a brand new game like Overwatch. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. So, I played a good couple of hours. I played against a bunch of different people, and it was just super, super fun. I'm gonna say right at the start now, very random. Incredibly random, but a fun kind of random. Not an infuriating kind of random. I did not once feel frustrated while playing this game, and that's really important. I also want to put in here that I played it on an iPad for the first time ever, so I had never played Hearthstone on a tablet type surface, you know, on anything but the PC, and oh my goodness, what an experience that was. I mentioned in my BlizzCon recap videos, the storytime videos, that I almost bought an iPad just because of how nice it was there in the US while I was at BlizzCon, and because of how cheap they were there. But I want to talk about that for a second before I move on to Goblins vs. Gnomes. It just feels so much better, and you guys have to realize that this released on the PC before it released on tablets, but after playing it on a tablet, after playing it on an iPad Air 2, I think it was, I will just say that I'm almost certain that that was what they wanted from Hearthstone. It had such a great feel, and it's not something you can get while playing on the PC when using your mouse. It's not the same. Being able to really fling those cards at your opponent was just so satisfying. It was incredibly responsive. It just felt like a completely different game, and at the same time, a much more fun experience playing it on a tablet surface. I can't recommend it enough. I don't even have anything to play it on here. It's not my PC. Okay, I don't have an iPad, I don't have an Android device ready and waiting, but I'm gonna have to get one soon because of how great it was. Now, those of you that have played it on iPads or other tablets like the Windows 8 Surfaces, you'll know what I'm talking about. Those that haven't, I recommend you run down to an iStore and hijack one of their iPads, install it on there. You don't need to take it. I just mean, like, camp out in front of it. Ask them if you can just quickly install Hearthstone on it. And then just sit there for a couple of hours or days and play it. Because it's worth it. It was so, so good. The game felt better. Okay, I'm done now. But Goblins vs. Gnomes. So, 120 new cards. Goblins and gnome themed. The new creature or card type is mech. There is a spectator mode coming. There's a new game board. And these new cards are going to be available through new booster packs, which is a really big deal. That means that you're going to have a choice. You're going to be able to buy one of the two booster packs. I'm so keen for that. I don't even have that much gold saved up, but I'm doing my dailies every single day now so that I can be sure to have enough to buy a bunch of card packs when it comes out. And, oh, the new cards. They are just so exciting. So exciting. Like, the stuff that they've managed to think of this time around, they push in the boundaries of what players are going to be able to comprehend. I mean, when these cards release, the meta is going to be so shaken up that it'll take months to recover. There might be a couple of, and I mean that in a good way, okay? In a really good way. There might be a couple of really strong dominant decks that emerge, but there are going to be so many potential counters to these strong and dominant decks that it's going to be an endless amount of discovery and fun. Okay, Okay, an endless amount. So, at BlizzCon, the way it was set up in the press room where I spent most of my time playing because there was no one playing in the press room. So what I ended up doing was, whenever I had a bit of downtime, I went in there and they had the iPad set up on like a long table. They had about 8 of them. So they had 2, 2, 2, 2 facing each other, then another 2, okay, 8 of them. And you could sit basically opposite the person you were playing against and play against them, see their face. It sort of feels like the Hearthstone World Championships were, where they were really up close and personal with each other. But it was set up nicely. They had them on iPad Air 2s. I checked. Felt really good performance-wise. It was great. And every time I went up to the press room after, I had a bit of time. So maybe I went to a panel or Q&A and I had just finished that. I had 20 or so, 30 minutes maybe before the next panel or Q&A started, or before the next show started, before the next interview started. I went in there, I found someone that was just standing around, hanging around there, waiting for something. Maybe someone in the Overwatch queue pulled them over, said, hey, come on, let's play a game. And because of that, the great thing was I got to play against people of all skill levels. Some people that had only briefly played Hearthstone before. A couple of matches. It was fun. Played against some people that were really good. They crushed me. That was also surprisingly fun, because I got crushed in the most random and silly ways. So I've got a press kit here with all the cards and stuff in. I can actually just look at them while talking with you about them. And the first impression that I get from playing this game is just that it's so much more random. There's so much more RNG involved, and it's gonna both infuriate and enthuse players. I mean, it's gonna make you want to play more because there's gonna be so much more that could potentially happen. More exciting stuff, more kind of depressing stuff, more stuff in general. I mean, the best example I could come up with instantly, just right off the top of my head, is the Madder Bomber. I'm trying to find it. There it is. Okay. This is Goblins versus Gnomes. It basically reads, Battle Cry, deals 6 damage randomly split between all other characters. It's like the Mad Bomber, just this guy's madder. Costs 5, it's a 5/4. It's great. And that's the feel that I got from playing, is just that, there's a lot of chance, but at the same time, obviously, because of the new card type, the mech type, and because of all the new cards that they put in to counter certain aspects of the meta, it's not just going to be RNG. There's going to be a lot of thought going into some of the decks that are going to be set up. A lot of thought. An example of that would be a card that I saw called the Clockwork Giant that costs 1 less for each card in your opponent's hand. I think we all know why that card was put in there. Because decks like Miracle Rogues or Handlocks, they're always just hoarding these cards, holding back. It's going to punish them. They put a lot of stuff in that can counter stuff that's currently dominating the meta and stuff that could potentially arise in the future. And because it's 120 new cards, man, infinite possibilities. So I played against a couple of the Blizzard EU community team guys. I think they won most of the games. Okay, I just wasn't playing very well. And we got to choose between a Priest deck, an Anduin deck, and a Jaina Proudmoore deck. And I actually have a gameplay video of these decks in action, which I'll upload after this. It was the B-roll footage. I'm not sure how readily that's available on the internet, but I think I'll upload it on my channel. No commentary or anything, you guys can just watch it and enjoy the gameplay. I don't usually do stuff like that, but I watched it this morning again after watching it the one time when I got back, and it was just such a fun game, so close, and a lot of what I'm talking about now, a lot of the random factor, a lot of what Goblins versus Gnomes is going to be all about, can be seen and felt in that video. So I heartily recommend you check that out. Really, really cool. But you get to choose between these 2 decks. That's it. They don't let you make your own deck. Basically, when you sit down, you have a choice between Jaina or Anduin, and then your opponent has the same choice. You can play a mirror match, or you can each play, one of the 2 decks that you get to choose from. And it's fun because the 2 decks were built differently. I felt like the Anduin 1 was built more like a priest deck, slightly more defensive, obviously a little more random. It had the priest card in that gives any mech, it has a battle cry that gives any mech 4 extra health, which was just so silly. I mean, the card itself was 5 for a 5/5, then it gives another minion 4 health if it's a mech. Was so silly. Really good. Really, really good. But the deck was built like a priest deck, and the priest cards in Goblins vs. Gnomes seemed to be really priestly in nature, although they were mechanical and they suited the theme. It was great how they had these identities firmly in place with the two decks. The Jaina deck, the mage deck, was much more all out in that sense. Like, there was much more raw damage in there, the kind of stuff you'd expect from a mage. There was a spell called Flame Cannon or something. I think it was called Flame Cannon, that dealt 4 damage to a random enemy minion. There it is, Flame Cannon for 2 mana. So cool to use. Like, so cool. No one expects 4 damage for 2 mana. You just don't. Well, you're gonna expect it now, of course, because the card is there. Then another card that was just super fun to use, which I loved, and this is actually mainly why I liked playing the mage deck a little bit more, was the Unstable Portal that just gives you a random card. It reads, add a random minion to your hand. It costs 3 less. Any minion. Anything. You could potentially cast that on turn 2, pick up a legendary that costs 6 mana and then play it on turn 3. So you could pick up Karen Bloodhoof, play that on turn 3, or Sylvanas or something like that. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Then the new legendaries. We had so much fun. And this was the kind of thing where we all came in there, we sat down. It was like, okay, we've got some time. Let's play a couple of games. Then all of us just filled up that line of Hearthstone tablets and we played. And there was nothing but laughing. Some shouting, of course. Like, no, how did you do that? How could you possibly have been that lucky? That kind of shouting that came out of our little corner of the room. Obviously, people were sort of like looking over at us. You be quiet over there, Hearthstone peasants. We are here to play Overwatch. It's the kind of thought that I got when I was in there, because everyone was there to play Overwatch, but I was just having such a blast playing Hearthstone. And that was the kind of feeling I got from this the whole time. Like, the legendary that summons another legendary. Oh my goodness, I got Deathwing from that baby. Deathwing. So he died, and then I saw like the sigh of relief on the dude I was playing against. He's like, got rid of the 7/7. That's great. Then in comes Deathwing in a little parachute. 12/12. I had so many laughs playing this thing, and that, I feel, is what's going to make it so great going forward. And that's the impression I got from it. It's just so fun. I mean, it's random, of course, but you have so much control over when and how the random happens that I wouldn't even really call it random. You get to choose what you put in your deck, of course. I didn't get to choose when I was playing at BlizzCon, but that's not the point, you know. Those were pre-made decks to show off different styles of play using these cards. But when this actually releases, we're going to get to choose what we put in there. We're going to get to choose how random our deck's going to be. Maybe you're going to just have a straight up consistent solid deck instead of a random one, but then you could get beaten into the ground by someone who's random and lucky. And I just love that, and I think it's going to shake things up so much so that Hearthstone, wow, it's going to explode in popularity, okay? People are going to be all over this because it's also going to make things in some ways more competitive. Because if you think about it, then more players will have a chance and the random won't be so concentrated anymore. It'll just be kind of all over the place in a good way. I love it, okay? I know some of you guys will probably say it's terrible and it's a bad choice, but I think that a fun and light-hearted expansion like this is the best possible way of going forward. Sure, they'll probably release another adventure or something next, and that's great. More focused, but this is all over the place and I love it. And you know, playing that's the feeling I got. Now, I can say a few more things about the actual gameplay because, well, that's actually what I want to talk about here. You can't fiddle with a game board yet, although it's beautiful, super cool game board. You can't tap on things, you can't click on things, whatever. It wasn't in there yet, but they did explicitly say it's still coming. Then the music that they used in the background, it was all the Cataclysm Goblin music. It was really cool. Okay, really, really cool. But it was not new music for this Goblins vs. Gnomes expansion. They did say that they might not be making new music. I'm kind of sad about that, but if they could just toss the Goblins soundtrack from the Cataclysm soundtrack in there, I'd be happy. I love that song. I like that tune. So if they put that in there, that would be cool. And other than that, I just had a great time playing it. One, because it was on the iPad and it was something extremely fascinating and new to me. And two, because, well, it was all about the stories we had to tell afterwards. The crazy things that happened. It's great. Okay, some highlights in terms of cards for me are mostly the legendaries. Like, I had a lot of fun with Blingtron. I think Blingtron's the one that gives a random weapon to each player, a golden one, obviously. He was really cool. I didn't get to use, obviously, Bouncing Blade because that was a warrior card, but I saw that in the panel, and oh my goodness, I'm so excited about Bouncing Blade. That's something that I really, really, really want to use. Really, really, really want to use. And I do think that going forward, there's going to be a lot more that you'd consider viable. Like, you're going to be able to play all the different styles because of these meta counters they put in. You can play a tempo deck, you can play a rush deck, you can play one of those late game control decks, and that's great. Dr. Boom, he was a huge highlight for me. He summons the 2 little boom bots that explode and deal 1 to 4 random damage. Such a cool legendary. And then, well, just like a whole bunch of others. It was a ton of fun. So if you haven't already, visit the official Goblins vs. Gnomes website. Check the cards out that are being voted for on a daily basis. There are some really cool reveals going on there. And the ones that have been shown off recently, they've been really, really good. Incredibly good. They showed a Hunter Legendary off a couple of days ago. So nice. I would have liked to have seen the Druid one. And I want to see more Rogue cards because currently I'm kind of getting into the Rogue. It's my class of choice at the moment, but wow. Okay, Goblins vs. Gnomes are going to be great, and I personally think I'm going to be playing a whole lot more Hearthstone when that comes out, just because there's going to be that discovery aspect involved, that experimentation phase, where everyone's just going to be playing random stuff when it comes out. The game is being released on Android devices in December, and Goblins vs. Gnomes is coming out. But of all the stuff that I played at BlizzCon, I would say I enjoyed Goblins vs. Gnomes the most. Just because of how crazy it was. I mean, I had a ton of fun playing Overwatch, of course. Of course. And the other games. But Goblins vs. Gnomes, wow. It's going to have a special place in my heart. So, if you want to ask me anything, please let rip about how it played, about who I played against, how much I played, about the game itself, about the cards that have been revealed, about the cards that perhaps weren't revealed yet, and all the rest. Please leave them below as comments. Leave those questions. I will be happy to answer them. And you can check back here soon for more. Give this video a like, share it, and do all that other good stuff. I'm going to be uploading the gameplay video from Goblins vs. Gnomes and an interview / Q&A type thing with one of the Hearthstone devs, which was pretty fun as well. That'll be coming up shortly, so stay tuned. Happy that.